We were married for 16 years, and in all that time I never thought I'd end up standing on the other side of the window like some stranger spying on his own life, heart pounding like a war drum in my chest, while the woman I built a life with giggled like a high school girl on a damn video call with some man named Chris. A name that, until that moment, meant nothing to me, but would go on to haunt every quiet hour of every sleepless night that followed. Our home wasn't anything fancy, just a single-story ranch on a tree-lined street just outside Des Moines, Iowa, with vinyl siding that needed power washing and a porch light that flickered no matter how many times I replaced the bulb. But it was ours. I poured my life into that house, into every patch of drywall I repaired, every clogged drain I fixed, every heavy bag of salt I lugged down into the basement for the softener. And I thought that meant something. I really did. I worked long hours, real work, the kind that turns your hands into sandpaper and makes your shoulders ache so bad you dream about lying on concrete just to stretch them out. I was foreman at the sheet metal plant down off Highway 69, where the pay was steady if not spectacular, and the air always carried that smell of iron and sweat that most folks would complain about. But to me, it smelled like purpose. It paid the mortgage, kept the girls in school clothes, and let Marlene have the kind of life where she didn't have to worry about punching a clock, especially after she got laid off during the pandemic. "I need to focus on myself for a while," she'd said when the world started spinning again and jobs came back. I didn't press her on it. I didn't push. That wasn't how I was raised. My dad always said if a man couldn't provide for his wife without asking questions, then he wasn't a man at all. So I just kept working. I kept trusting. And for a while, it seemed like we were fine. We had our routines: family pizza on Fridays, grocery runs on Sundays, movie nights with the girls where Marlene would doze off halfway through but always wake up in time to complain about the ending. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still cooked dinner on most nights. But looking back, I can see it now. How it all started to fade, piece by piece, like the color draining out of an old photograph. It started with little things, stuff you wouldn't even clock unless you were looking real close. She started locking her phone at night, something she never used to do. We weren't a passwords kind of couple. Hell, I didn't even have a password on my own phone. But now, every time hers buzzed, she'd tilt the screen away or leave the room like the messages were some kind of state secret. I told myself it was nothing. I wanted it to be nothing. Because if I let myself believe otherwise, then that meant the foundation of my entire world was cracked, and I wasn't ready to deal with that. But the worst part, the part that still makes my stomach turn when I think about it, was how she stopped seeing me. Not physically. She was still there, across the table at dinner, still in the passenger seat on the way to parent-teacher conferences, still folding laundry beside me on lazy Sunday afternoons. But she wasn't with me anymore. Her eyes didn't light up when she looked at me. Her laughs didn't have that warmth anymore. They were shorter now, more clipped, like she was checking a box on some imaginary list. And the affection, the casual, familiar touches that once made even the hardest days feel worth it. They dried up, vanished, like dew under a hot sun. Then came that Saturday. I'll never forget it. I was supposed to be on a fishing trip with some buddies from work, first one in months, but a storm rolled in and canceled the whole thing. So I came home early, thinking maybe I'd surprise Marlene with breakfast, maybe spend the day together like we used to before life got so damn complicated. But when I pulled into the driveway, I didn't hear the TV or the hum of the washing machine. I heard her voice, laughing, a real, full-bodied laugh I hadn't heard in years. It was coming from the backyard, so I cut the engine and walked around the side of the house, careful not to crunch the gravel. There she was, sitting on the patio swing with a throw blanket draped over her legs and her hair done up like she was going somewhere fancy. Makeup on, that necklace I bought her on our 10th anniversary glinting in the sunlight. She was holding her phone out in front of her, FaceTiming someone, and from the way she was giggling and twirling her hair, I didn't need to guess what kind of call it was. I was still out of her line of sight, just close enough to hear bits and pieces. "Chris, you're so bad," she said, her voice soft and syrupy. "I can't wait until next weekend." Next weekend. Not see you at the store or we should catch up. No, she was planning something. Something that didn't include me or our girls or this life we'd supposedly built together. My stomach dropped. I felt like someone had punched me in the throat, knocked the wind clean out of me. My hands were shaking, and not from rage, not yet, but from something colder, something deeper. I felt betrayed in a way I didn't have words for, like the ground I was standing on had been hollowed out without me realizing it. I didn't confront her. Not that day. I couldn't. Maybe I should have. Maybe I should have stormed out there and demanded answers, demanded the truth, but I didn't. Instead, I backed away, careful not to make a sound, and slipped back into my truck, where I sat with the engine off and my thoughts spinning like a dryer on high. I needed to be sure. I needed to know that what I'd heard, what I felt, wasn't just some paranoid fantasy fueled by too many long shifts and too little sleep. But even then, in the pit of my gut, I knew that something had shifted, something had cracked. And no matter what I did from that point on, things would never be the same. Because that moment, that one quiet, sunlit Saturday morning, wasn't just the start of the end. It was the moment I realized I didn't really know the woman I was married to anymore. And maybe I never had. After I heard her say that name, Chris, and whisper those words like they were sweet little secrets made just for him, something inside me switched. Not snapped, not yet, but shifted like a heavy door slowly creaking open into a part of myself I didn't even know existed. I wish I could say I confronted her right then, demanded answers, threw down the gauntlet and got the truth. But I didn't. I couldn't. I wasn't ready. I still had this insane, pathetic hope that maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe Chris was a therapist or some friend she never mentioned. Hell, maybe I'd imagined the tone of her voice, that soft, syrupy tone she hadn't used with me in years. But deep down, I wasn't stupid. I knew what I'd heard. I knew what I'd seen in her smile. A kind of lightness, a joy, that had been missing from our marriage for a long time. It just hadn't occurred to me that it was missing because she'd given it to someone else. So I started watching. Quietly, obsessively, like some goddamn detective in a bad TV show. I checked the mileage on her car every time she left the house. I memorized the route she claimed to take to her therapy sessions, and double-checked how long she was gone against how long that drive should take. I even, and I'm ashamed to admit this, started going through the trash after she took it out, picking through empty coffee cups and gas receipts like a man with no dignity left, because, truth be told, I didn't. Dignity doesn't mean much when your whole reality is cracking apart at the seams. And sure enough, I found it. The smoking gun, the thing I couldn't explain away, an Applebee's receipt folded in half and tossed beneath a pile of junk mail, 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, a dessert, date and time stamped for the same Thursday night she told me she was at her friend Janine's house. I stood there in the kitchen, the hum of the fridge the only sound in the room, and unfolded the slip of paper with hands that shook like they belonged to someone else. It was signed, in neat cursive. Love you. C. That was it. That was the moment I stopped pretending. This wasn't some emotional rough patch. This wasn't Marlene going through a phase. This wasn't confusion or trauma or stress from the pandemic. No, she was cheating. Full stop. She was lying to me, lying to our girls, living a double life with a man who signed restaurant receipts like a high school sweetheart, scribbling love notes in a yearbook. And the worst part? She didn't even try to hide it that well, like she either didn't care if I found out or wanted me to. I wish I could tell you I lost it then. That I flipped the kitchen table, screamed into the void, punched a hole in the drywall like some wounded animal. But I didn't. I just sat. Right there on the linoleum floor, with that receipt clutched in my hand like a letter from a ghost. I thought about our daughters, Lacey, 13, with braces and a soft spot for bad rom-coms, and Ellie, 10, who still brought her teddy bear into the living room during storms. I thought about what this would do to them, how it would shatter the little world we'd built together, a world that might have been cracked and tired but was still theirs. So I made a plan. I decided I'd gather every piece of evidence I could find. Build a case like I was heading to court, because one day the truth would have to come out. And when it did, I needed to be ready. Not just for me, for them. I started keeping a log, pages and pages in a spiral notebook hidden behind the tool chest in the garage. I wrote down dates, times, alibis, strange changes in routine. I kept screenshots from the GPS history on her phone, snapped pictures of the receipts, noted every time she came home smelling like cologne that didn't belong to me. I even had my buddy Tom, who works over at the sheriff's office, run a background check on this Chris. He found his Facebook, real estate agent. Drives a silver F-150. Lives downtown, single, flashy, fake tan smile. Exactly the kind of smug bastard who thinks a wedding ring is just a challenge. Meanwhile, I started to unravel. Slowly, quietly, in ways only I noticed at first. I stopped sleeping. I lay awake listening for the front door, wondering if this would be the night she didn't come home. I started drinking more. Not enough to lose control, but enough to dull the sharp edges of the truth I was holding inside like a jagged stone. I'd pour myself 2 fingers of whiskey after the girls were in bed and sit at the kitchen table staring at the fridge, at the old family calendar with birthdays and dentist appointments written in her looping handwriting. I didn't erase them. I just let them rot on the wall, a reminder of the lie we were all living under. At dinner, I'd watch her across the table as she made small talk with the girls, her voice chipper, her smile too wide. She'd compliment Lacey's math test score, remind Ellie to wash behind her ears, pass me the mashed potatoes like nothing was wrong, and I'd smile back, nod, pretend. But I wasn't there anymore. Not really. I was just a ghost with calloused hands and a quiet rage bubbling beneath my skin. A man vanishing in his own house, his own life, while the woman he loved got prettier by the day. Because that's the thing. She was changing. She started dressing nicer, wearing perfume again. She got a new haircut, started wearing lipstick even when she said she was just running errands. She smiled more, laughed more. But not with me, never with me. That light in her had come back, but I knew now it was because someone else had lit it. Someone she thought deserved it more. And me? I was disappearing, fading like a picture left out in the sun too long. There, but less. Present, but empty. And every night I spent pretending to be okay. Every lie I swallowed for the sake of our kids, every fake laugh I forced out at the dinner table chipped away at what little was left of the man I used to be. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I was going to get the truth. And when I did, I was going to make sure she couldn't run from it. 3 weeks into my self-appointed role as investigator of my own damn life, I'd filled half a notebook with scribbled notes, receipts, timestamps, and late-night thoughts that made me feel more like a stalker than a husband. I'd memorized the patterns, the lies disguised as routines, and watched Marlene move through our home like it was some stage play and she was just waiting for the curtain to drop. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what came next. Not the locked phone, not the dinner receipts, not the perfume she wore that wasn't for me. No, it was Dave, my neighbor of 12 years, who finally cracked the silence wide open. It was a Saturday morning, the kind that used to mean pancakes and cartoons and lazy coffee on the porch. I was pushing my mower across the front yard, head down, sweat stinging my eyes, pretending like the buzz of the engine could drown out the noise in my head. That's when Dave waved me over from across the fence. At first I thought maybe he needed help with his extension cord again or wanted to borrow my hedge trimmer like he always did. But he looked nervous, pale. His fingers twitched on the rake in his hand like he didn't want to be holding it anymore. "Jake," he said, voice low, like a man about to betray a friend. "Look, I don't want to get in your business, man. I really don't. But," and here he paused, like he was begging me with his eyes not to make him say the next part, "I've seen Marlene, Thursday nights, same time, every week, getting into a truck that ain't yours." I froze. Dead still. My mower chugged to a stop behind me. "Truck?" I asked, my mouth suddenly dry as sand. He nodded. "Silver F-150. Guy's always early. Sits there for a few minutes, lights on like he's waiting for her signal or something. She gets in. They drive off. Sometimes she's dressed up. Sometimes she's got one of those gym bags. But it's been happening for a while now. I thought you should know. The world tilted. Not dramatically, not like in a movie where the camera spins and the music swells. No, this was quieter, more terrifying. Like the sudden realization you've been living in a house with a slow gas leak and just struck a match. I nodded slowly, trying to stay upright as everything inside me slid sideways. Thanks, Dave, I said, forcing the words through my clenched jaw. Appreciate it. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed beside her, her back to me, her breath slow and steady, and stared at the ceiling like it might offer answers, like it might whisper what the hell I was supposed to do next. She'd told me she was seeing a new therapist on Thursdays, someone who only did evening sessions. I'd even offered to drive her, to wait in the car, grab a coffee. But she said no, said she needed the time to process alone. Alone, my ass. The following Thursday, I told her I had to work late. Some nonsense about the plant needing a night foreman. She nodded absently, barely listening, more concerned with getting her eyeliner right. I kissed our girls goodnight, told them Daddy had to work, but he'd be home before morning, and left like I was heading to war. I parked 2 blocks over and waited. The air was cold, crisp enough to burn in my lungs. I had a thermos of black coffee, a pack of gum I kept chewing until my jaw ached, and a heart that wouldn't quit pounding. My hands trembled against the steering wheel, not with fear. No, this was something worse. Clarity. I knew what I was about to see. But some part of me still hoped, still begged, still screamed inside that maybe I was wrong. At exactly 7:12 p.m., not 7:11, not 7:13, the silver F-150 rolled up to my driveway like a goddamn parade float. Clean, shiny, chrome wheels. This wasn't some beat-up side project. This was a statement. He left the engine running, headlights casting long shadows across our yard. I watched the front door, barely breathing, eyes locked on the porch steps like they were sacred ground. And then she came out. Hair curled. That perfume. The one I bought her for our anniversary. The one she used to wear when we still had a sex life, when we still had something. She had on tight jeans, heels, a coat I hadn't seen before. Her gym bag was slung over one shoulder. She was smiling. Smiling, like this was her prom night. And when she got to the truck, she didn't hesitate. No nervous glances, no checking her phone. Just a fluid, familiar motion. She opened the door, climbed in, and leaned over to kiss him. Not on the cheek like an old friend. Not quick and cautious. Number. It was the kind of kiss that said history. That said, this isn't our first time. That said, this is mine now. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't burst from the shadows like a man possessed. I just sat there, watched, felt something inside me hollow out. Not anger, not yet, just absence. Like watching your house burn down while you're still sitting in the living room. I don't remember driving away. I just remember the silence in my truck, the creak of the thermos cap as I unscrewed it, the taste of coffee that had long gone cold. I don't even know where I went. I just drove until the streets blurred into nothing, until I was too tired to see straight. I came home well after midnight. The house was quiet. Our girls were tucked into bed. Their nightlights glowed softly down the hall. Marlene's side of the bed was empty. I knew she'd be back before sunrise, probably with some lie about how therapy ran long or how she'd gone to Janine's for tea. She was good at lies now, smooth, casual, almost believable. I didn't wait for her. I slept on the couch, under an old throw blanket that still smelled like my daughter's shampoo. And in that still, lonely silence, I made a promise to myself. I was going to confront her, but not with fists, not with rage. I wanted truth. Cold, clinical, undeniable truth. I was done waiting. I was done fading. And she had no idea what was coming. The weekend after I watched my wife kiss another man in the cab of a truck parked in my driveway. Our driveway. I made a decision. Not out of impulse, not out of panic or some primal rage, but with a clear, cold mind that had finally stopped spinning. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw her bags out on the lawn like a scene from a cheap drama. I'd done enough of the slow death, swallowing betrayal like it was medicine, pretending to be blind for the sake of peace. No, if she wanted to blow up our life, I was going to make sure she couldn't walk away with clean hands. So I made an appointment with a local counselor, someone recommended by a coworker's wife, a woman named Deborah who specialized in couples communication. I didn't want therapy. I didn't want to fix anything. I just needed a space where the truth could echo, where she couldn't lie her way out. I booked the appointment under the guise of working on things, told Marlene it might help us reconnect. She agreed without much hesitation, maybe out of guilt, maybe because she thought it'd be an easy performance. Maybe she figured she could blame me for whatever had died between us. Maybe she thought I'd grovel. But I wasn't going to Deborah for help. I was going for closure. That Monday, we walked into the office together, side by side but miles apart. She wore a flowy blouse and those little ankle boots she liked, the ones she hadn't worn in years until recently. I wore my work shirt, still dusted with the scent of burnt metal and shop grease. I sat stiff in the chair. She sat with one leg crossed over the other, polished and calm like someone attending a coffee date. Deborah was kind. Warm smile, gentle voice, the kind that makes people relax. She introduced herself, said her office was a judgment-free space, and asked what had brought us there. I didn't look at Marlene when I answered. I think my wife is cheating on me, I said flatly, without theatrics, without tremble. And I'd like to talk about that, right here, right now. Deborah blinked, taken off guard. Marlene didn't flinch. She just crossed her arms tighter and said, with that cold little shrug I'd grown used to, "Well, now you know." That was it. Not a tear, not a gasp, no apology. Just those 4 words, delivered like she was ordering coffee. Well, now you know. And in that moment, I swear I saw the mask fall. The years of pretending, the rehearsed wife routine, the fake laughter at family dinners, all of it peeled away. What was left wasn't sadness. It wasn't regret. It was relief. Like she'd finally dropped the weight of pretending to love the man who'd sacrificed half his soul for her. Deborah looked like she wanted to crawl into her notebook. "Marlene," she said gently, "can you help me understand?" "No," I cut in, turning to her. "She doesn't need to explain. I brought receipts." I pulled out the manila folder from my backpack. Thick, worn, stuffed with my paint-on paper. Photos of her getting into that silver truck. Screenshots of her GPS history. Copies of receipts from dinners, spa trips, and wine tastings she swore were girls' nights. Even a picture of her holding Chris's hand outside that overpriced Italian place she never took me to, but suddenly loved. Deborah's face changed. Her eyes scanned the documents slowly, her lips parting as the evidence piled up. "You've clearly done your homework," she said cautiously. I turned back to Marlene, who hadn't even picked up the folder. "Nothing to say?" She leaned back in the chair, her mouth twisting into that smug, dead-eyed smirk that made my skin crawl. "What do you want me to say, Jake? That I'm sorry? That I regret it? I don't. I haven't been happy in years. I was just going through the motions. You knew it. You just didn't want to admit it." And that was the thing, wasn't it? She wasn't sorry. Because this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. This was planned. Rehearsed. She'd chosen this. Chosen him. Over and over again, week after week, lie after lie, while I held our family together like a one-man scaffolding, trying to keep a crumbling house upright. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw the folder at her feet or demand answers she wouldn't give. I just said, "You didn't just cheat on me. You made me feel crazy. You made me doubt myself. You made me think I was broken because you stopped loving me and didn't have the guts to say it." Marlene tilted her head. "I tried to say it," she replied coldly. "But you're the kind of man who doesn't listen unless there's a fire." Well, here we are. That hit me harder than anything else. Not the cheating, not the deception, But the fact that she saw my loyalty as weakness, that she thought my love, years of hard work, sacrifice, doing the right thing, was some boring, predictable weight around her ankle. Deborah was quiet for a while after that. I think she realized we weren't there for therapy. We were there for the truth to be spoken finally, with no more hiding behind good manners and polite lies. The session ended without a resolution, without any plan for follow-ups. Deborah gently suggested we might benefit from individual counseling and handed us both cards as we left. Outside, we didn't speak. We walked back to the car like strangers who'd shared a long flight, tired, distant, and eager to be rid of each other. I offered to drive, but she waved me off. "I'll get a ride," she said, and tapped her phone. I didn't ask who was coming to get her. I already knew. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I took the old Afghan from the closet and curled up on the living room couch. I watched the shadows of tree branches crawl across the ceiling. I listened to the house creak and shift and breathe around me. And I started thinking for the first time in 16 years about what life might look like without her. No more pretending, no more lies, no more Marlene. Just me, a man who had hit rock bottom but who was still standing. And I'll be damned if I didn't start to feel lighter already. The final part will be released tomorrow at 9 p.m. Don't miss it.